Alright, so what we have here is this is a printer motor. I found it as scrap being out and about, and it's about a max 42 volt. You can see here. Now I've connected the positive and the negative. I've put a little wire on them and I've connected them through these cables. Just this little LED here, this little light. It's about a 2 to max 2.2 volt. If you do any more, it'll blow. And if I turn it clockwise, ooh, look at that. See? We can get it to flash. Isn't that cool? Very nifty. If I do it counterclockwise, I don't get nothing. You see? Clockwise. There we go. Now what happens if I reverse these clips and then I do it counterclockwise? You can see I've reversed them and I'm going to do it clockwise and we get nothing. If I do it counterclockwise, look at that. We're getting electricity. So I'm doing it counterclockwise. And now we're getting electricity. So you can see that one way will produce electricity. And the other way, I imagine clockwise, if I turn on this DC generator here, and I unplug the LEDs, and I take the positive end, and I put it through the negative, here, and then I take the negative end, and I put it in the positive, we get a spin that is counterclockwise. You can see here it's spinning. Look at that. Isn't that cool? And if I reverse the polarity, what will happen here? And this is just, it's using 6 volts currently. You can use this, you can run this motor off like a volt, I think. Alright, I've reversed it and it is now turning clockwise, it seems. Right, so if I connect the positive to the positive, it turns clockwise. If I connect the negative to negative, clockwise. And if I reverse that, positive and negative, it goes counterclockwise. Now, if I connect this motor up to a voltmeter, here's our little voltmeter. So I've got the motor's positive to the voltmeter's negative, and the motor's negative to the voltmeter's positive. And I'm going to turn it clockwise, and look at that, we get a negative voltage. And I'm going to turn it counterclockwise, and look at that. Do we get a volt? Let me try to go to 20, and let's try to get at least 1 volt. There we go, we got 3. So I'm turning it, as you can see. Spin it as much as I can, and we are getting voltage reading. Now there are more efficient ways to spin this motor than to use your fingers like I am, but if I turn the opposite way, I get a lot more. But look at that, if I do it with a lot of force, try to get those peaks. We got a 7, that was pretty high. So as we can see, that we can get current, electrical current from a motor into a voltmeter and into an LED, and we can run things from that, from just using mechanical force. Now let's take a look inside of one of these. This is a brushed DC motor. There's brushless and brushed. Brushed have these little connectors, and they can be made out of most metal. They're more fragile because you can break them easily, especially small ones, so they're not quite as good as the brushless, but they are cheaper. So let's take a look into one. Here we have just it's about a 3 to 5 volt motor. You can see positive and negative, and if I turn them on, increasing the amperage, and these are kind of like the motors they use in like a vibrator. You just put a piece of metal on there around this size. This is more like a drill motor. for example. If you look here, you can see these two pieces of metal, like that little hinge and that little hinge there. You just have to get something in there. I used a piece of scissors, and you'll pop it off, or you'll bend them off, and then you just take this plastic top piece off. And here we are. Let's see if I can pop out this fella. All right, 3 main pieces. Internally of the motor, this is a brushed motor, by the way, brushed DC. It has these 2 magnets. You can see these 2 pieces, these magnets here. And then I think they call that as a stator, and this is the rotor. I'm not quite sure. You think of rotor because it rotates. Then we have this fella here, and you can see the wire is wrapped around him. You see the wire kind of wrapped around him like so, and it's connected to this top piece here, which I think is connected to the metal bar, I think. And you've got these metal pieces. I'm not quite sure if they add weight or what they do. I don't know, or if they're magnets or something. And within the brushes, you can see the positive and negative simply connect to, there we are, got in focus. You can see these little like forks there. You can see the tiny little forks, and they touch the metal rod. And what happens is that somehow electrifying it will, I don't know, electrify this whole thing, and then then there's like a force between the magnets and the electrified wire, which basically looks like it's like a electromagnetic force repulsion thingamajigger. So that's kind of the guts of how this thing works. Essentially, you've got these 2 positive and negatives connecting to the brush, which connects to like this rod, so to speak. And then you got the electromagnetic components in the middle. I recommend you check out a video just to see about the idea of like an electromagnetic field. But really, it's just kind of magnets. Magnets pull and push, and it's just different angles of magnets pulling and pushing at different times, directed by the electricity, which directs the electromagnetic field, which causes it to rotate. And the brushless one is similar. It's just a little more refined, a little more modernistic maybe. And then because you can use a current to make it run, you can do the opposite, which is how they basically generate electricity old school. They use a giant one of these, and you can just, you can use a bike. You can use a bike and a bike hub motor and make electricity, and you could just ride a bike for a couple hours and juice your whole house up for a day if you had to. So there are actually lots of ways to generate electricity. A wind turbine uses one of these. Imagine imagine a fan. You've got the fan things coming out of this. The turbine moves, right? And a water thing does it too. You could use like running water from a tap or a shower. You could have little generators there to run the light. While you're using the shower, you have a generator that runs a light there if you really wanted to. So that's kind of cool, I think. But this is, if you can get creative, you can find all kinds of ways to create power through a generator. And that's not even talking about all the ways you can chemically create power, all the ways you can create power in other ways. Really, it's just there's so many interesting creative ways out there.